Are you ready to embark on a sweet adventure right in your own backyard? Making maple syrup at home is not only a rewarding experience, but also a delightful way to connect with nature as you enjoy the fruits, or shall we say syrup, of your labor. In this guide, we'll take you through each step of the process, from gathering the necessary gear to pulling the taps and enjoying your homemade syrup. Step 1. Gather the gear. Before you begin, make sure you have all the necessary equipment on hand to tap your trees. You'll need a drill with a 3/8-inch drill bit, a nail or small screwdriver to remove shavings, tap or spile, rubber mallet, buckets or collecting containers, bucket lid with a pre-drilled hole, half-inch plastic tubing for buckets, and a rope to tie the buckets to the trees. Step 2. Find your trees. Choosing the right trees is essential for a successful maple syrup operation. While sugar maples are the traditional choice, silver maples can also be tapped for syrup and are much more available in our area. Look for trees with flaky bark and red buds at the top. If you are unsure about tree species, a plant ID app can be a helpful tool. Silver maples will require about 35 to 40 gallons of sap to produce 1 gallon of syrup, while sugar maples will take about 20 gallons of sap to make 1 gallon of syrup. Step 3. When to tap the trees. When the temperature outside gets above freezing, it sends the sap up to the buds. When it gets below freezing at night, it sends the sap back to the roots. And the next day, if it gets above freezing again, back up it goes. This creates a pumping action which results in pressure within the tree. Tapping a tree is like getting a tiny cut. The sap flows out as a result from that pressure. So, in short, sap starts flowing when daytime highs reach 40 degrees and the lows are in the 20s. Typically, in southeast Iowa, we tap in February, but we have occasionally tapped at the end of January and as late as March. Step 4. Tap the tree. Drill a hole about 1.5 to 2.5 inches into the tree at a slight upward angle to allow the sap to drip out. If the bark is thick, you may have to drill in a little more. Tap placement is important. Think of the sap as flowing from the buds to the roots and try and intersect it. We have had the best luck when we tap on the southern side of the tree, either over a large root or under a large branch. Also, be sure to avoid any scars or previous tap locations so you don't girdle the tree. Clean the hole thoroughly to remove any wood shavings that could block the tap. Pound the tap into the hole with a rubber mallet, ensuring a secure fit. Connect the tubing from the tap to the bucket. If the tree is less than 10 inches in diameter, don't tap it yet. If the tree is over 28 inches, you could put 2 taps in the tree. We like to under tap a tree so we don't stress it. Step 5. Collect the sap. Check your buckets daily and store the sap in a cool place to avoid spoiling. You can get rid of any ice that freezes in the buckets at night since the sugar doesn't freeze, only the water. Strain the sap to remove any impurities and keep it cool until you're ready to boil it down. Spoiled sap has an unclear, slightly milky look to it. Step 6. Boil it down. Since substantial quantities of water will be boiled off, it's best to do this outside. Our goal is typically to get about 40 gallons of sap and cook it down to about 2 to 3 gallons over the fire. We use cinder blocks and metal rods to get the metal pot hot. We feed the fire for about 1 whole day and just keep pouring in the sap. As it gets closer, be sure to keep an eye on the mix. It is possible to overcook it and it will turn into a caramel mess. We cooled the sap down and strained it through the metal strainer and cheesecloth before it got too thick. It's easier to strain earlier in the process and it gets more difficult the closer to syrup it becomes. Step 7. Finish it off. After filtering, we finish off the mix over a propane turkey fryer. Once the sap reaches 219 degrees Fahrenheit, remove it from the heat to avoid boiling over. The actual temperature you want to get it to is 220 if you're selling the maple syrup. Since we're just using it for home consumption or gifting to friends and family, we're fine with the 219 degrees because we don't want to risk it boiling over. Strain the syrup through cheesecloth to remove any impurities and pour it into jars. After sealing the lids, flip the jars upside down. The lids will seal from the heat, preserving your syrup for future enjoyment. Pulling the taps. If the sap becomes dark colored, less sweet, or cloudy, it's time to pull the taps. The holes will heal on their own. Making maple syrup in your backyard is a fun and rewarding endeavor that anyone can enjoy. With the right equipment and a little bit of patience, you can create delicious syrup to enjoy on pancakes, waffles, and more. So why not give it a try? Gather your gear, find your trees, and start tapping. Your homemade maple syrup awaits.